Alright, so this will be part 5 and the finale of What If Female Deku Was Android 21. And I'm sorry that I've been putting this series off for a while, so I decided I will finish it off here. Now then, we'll pick up from where we last left off. As Izumi would wake up in a hospital with Goten being nearby. The Goten is in a separate room, as Izumi would sense that Goten was still alive and he was okay. Because Izumi is well aware that going Super Saiyan Blue for as long as Goten did would seriously drain him. Because she's aware of the effects that Super Saiyan Blue has on Goten's body. As Chi-Chi and Goku are currently visiting them in the hospital to see if they're alright, as they're both fine. And I saw did see in the comments in the last part, which was months ago, on whether I should give her a Zenkai boost or not. And a lot of you did vote yes, but one of you did say I should give her Super Saiyan. I will not be giving her Super Saiyan. Why? Is because she has less Saiyan cells in her than Goten does. Goten is a half Saiyan, while Android 21's like, I believe 1/16 Saiyan. So there's no possible way that she could gain Super Saiyan. So I'm sorry I'm sorry to the person who wanted that. I can't give her Super Saiyan, but I can give her a Zenkai boost. So Izumi would feel a lot stronger from that. As we'll cut back to when they're back at school. As Aizawa would then say that the sports festival is coming up soon, so they'll need to train for that. As Izumi and Goten would go off and train on their own, with Goten training with Jiren, as I believe Goku and Jiren have a good relationship, so I believe Jiren would be well inclined to train Goten, as Izumi goes off to train with Whis. As the 2 weeks would go by, as they would then make it to UA and head to the sports festival arena, where their class is called out and Bakugo gives a speech like in canon. As we then get to the race, with the countdown beginning, as once President Mike reaches 0, Shoto then ends up freezing the ground as he then runs off, with Izumi and Goten then powering up, but Izumi doesn't transform yet, as she then flies with Goten. As they would basically pass right over they'd pass over Shoto and Bakugo and everyone else, as they would make it to the 0 pointers. Goten would slow down to try and destroy them, as Izumi would just fly right through them, leaving a massive hole in the 0 pointer's chest area, as it would collapse. With Goten being shocked by this, as he's realizing that he's falling behind, as he would fly faster to try and catch up to Izumi. As they would basically just fly over the canyon area, so that's no problem. And once they get over the minefield, Izumi then generates a small energy ball, and then she then just drops it. as it would then begin to fall to the ground, as it would touch one of the mines, and it would detonate, causing all the mines in the area to explode, and causing a smoke screen. As Goten would make it out of there, as he would realize that Izumi's already far ahead of him. As Izumi would then arrive at the finish line, reaching first place. As we then get into the cavalry battle, that goes about as similar as it does in canon, except that Goten is on Izumi's team, and... Hold on, I need to check what the ship for the series was. Give me a minute. I just remembered I didn't decide on what the ship was, so for the ship for this will be Todoroki and Izumi, but the ship won't start until after the sports festival. So don't worry. So once they reach the battles, this is how it goes. The brackets will go. It'll go as they did in canon, except Goten will be facing off against Bakugo in Uraraka's place, since Uraraka didn't make it to the finals in this timeline. As the fights go nearly similar to canon, except Izumi doesn't even let Shinso use his quirk, as she immediately just kicks him in the stomach as he goes flying out of the ring. So as the fights go on, Izumi and Goten are decimating their opponents, as we then get to Izumi versus Todoroki. As the match would begin, with Shoto generating an ice wall, and Izumi just pointing her finger as she then blasts it, as the ice wave would just explode, sending Shoto back a bit. As Izumi's basically looking at Shoto, as she would say, if you're not going to fight at full power, then I'm not even going to use my entire hand to fight you. So really, this is more of an embarrassment to you than it is to me. As Shoto begins to send another ice barrage, yelling, "I will never use his quirk." As Izumi is thinking to herself, this is childish. As she then slashes her finger downward, as the beam slices through the wave of ice, again, basically obliterating it, as Shoto is sent back more. As Izumi would say to Shoto, for Kami's sake, it's not his quirk. It's your quirk. He has no control over what you do with it. That is your choice to use it. Not his, yours. As Shoto would be very angry as he'd yell, "Did my father pay you off to say that?" As Izumi would be getting furious at this, as she'd then transform, as she would then say, "If you think your father paid me off to say that, then you are dead wrong." As she then dashes towards Shoto and basically punches him like where his diaphragm is, which where his stomach is. For those of you who don't know what happens when you hit there, Shoto is basically winded and is knocked out. Just before Shoto loses consciousness, Izumi would say, "If you're going to become a good hero, then use your full power. If not, then this is just then you're just an embarrassment of a hero." As Shoto would collapse to the ground, with those words echoing in his head. With Midnight saying that Todoroki has been knocked out and that Izumi wins. As we then get to Goten versus Bakugo. Now, do I really need to say what happens in that fight? I think we all know what happens in that fight. Goten wipes the floor with Bakugo. Anyway, moving on to the final battle of Izumi versus Goten. As Gohan, the Great Saiyaman, is currently watching this, as he'd say to Aizawa and Mike that they should probably move them to a secluded location so that they don't end up killing anybody at flying out full power. As Aizawa and Mike would say that is right. So Gohan basically takes out some cameras he got from Capsule Corp, as he would then, as President Mike and Aizawa would then announce that Izumi and Goten's fight will take place in a more secluded location, but they have cameras so that if they do, so that they can witness this fight. As Izumi and Goten then teleport to a secluded location. I'll say they teleport to a planet that has no life on it. Why? Because I'm sick and tired of the desert stuff that Dragon Ball Z pulls. So we're going with a dead planet. As Gohan is there as well, as he drops off the cameras. As Izumi and Goten would then go at each other, with Izumi transforming and battling with Goten. As throughout the fight, people are watching this and they are amazed at the sheer amount of raw power and speed that the two of them possess. As Izumi would land a punch in on Goten, and Goten would land a punch in on Izumi. As they're both fighting, they're both enjoying it. As Izumi would then fire a key ball at Goten, which Goten would basically chop at, which would send it out of the way, as they'd call it, to detonate it on a asteroid, which would completely obliterate it. As Goten is basically pulling his old man's trick of the instant transmission Kamehameha. As just as he's about to fire off, Izumi also fires a blast off into the Kamehameha at point blank. As both of them are at point blank range, this causes an explosion, which it causes the two of them to fly back. Consider a mount. As both of them are a tad bit exhausted from this fight, as Izumi would say to Goten, "How about we finish this fight off with a bang, Goten?" As Goten would say, "Yeah, you're right." As Goten would then power up to Super Saiyan Blue, as Izumi would power up into her final form, as they both use their very respective powerful moves. As Izumi would then reach out her hand, as she would charge a beam in it, a blast in it, as Goten would begin to charge up a very powerful Kamehameha. Oh my god. As they're about to do this, Aizawa and Mike are thinking, this is dangerous, we need to stop them. As Gohan would say, you're probably right, we will need to stop them. As just before Gohan could get there, they fire off their blasts, as they would then collide. As a struggle would ensue, with Izumi continuing to hold her hand out to keep the beam from moving back towards her. As she does have her other hand on the beam on her arm right now to keep it in place, as Goten is currently going all out to get the Kamehameha sent back towards Izumi. See Izumi then smiling and saying to Goten, do you really think you can beat me in this? Well, you might any other day, but you're wrong right here. As she would then pull her arm back and then fire a beam, which would hit her blast, as it would cause it to expand. As Goten is basically pushing his Kamehameha to its fullest potential, as the attack is basically getting. It's sort of like how Goku and Frieza's fight beam struggle went in Resurrection F, with Goten basically pushing it back all the way, as it would fly past Izumi and then hit another dead planet, which would cause that planet to blow up. As Goten, being exhausted at this point, is basically barely got any energy to move, as Izumi would immediately teleport behind him and chop him in the back of the neck, knocking him out. As Izumi would then teleport back to Earth in the arena and toss Goten out of bounds. As Midnight would say that Son Goten is out of bounds, Son Izumi is the victor. As the award ceremony would go on, with All Might and the Great Saiyaman presenting the awards. As All Might then, as this stuff goes about as it did in canon, the internships go about as they did canon. Except that, I'm going to say Izumi did end up rescuing Ida from Stain just by blasting Stain with a ki blast in her base form, as Stain would have been knocked out by that. The final exam that would go about as it did in canon. And now we get to the training camp arc. If I'm going through these too quickly, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this out of the way so I can get on to other projects I have planned. I will tell you one of them at the end of this video. Anyway, as we're getting to the training camp arc, Izumi and Shoto's relationship has gone a bit better to where they're actually friends now. As Shoto has visited Izumi and Goten during one of their training sessions, where Shoto was actually nearly sent flying back after Izumi and Goten had collided fists to generate a massive shockwave. As once they've finished that, they then end up reaching the training camp, where the Wild Pussycats try to push them down, as Izumi and Goten would release their auras at full power, as this would basically send the landslide thing back at away from them, but it would hit everybody else apart from Shoto, who is near Izumi, and Goten. Why? Because and it wouldn't also hit Goten or Izumi, because, like I explained earlier, as everybody else would fall down, Izumi would run over, look down, and sarcastically say, "Are you guys alright down there?" As everybody would allow a groan of pain. Everyone in class 1A would allow a groan of pain, as Izumi would say, "Well, they're alive at least." As Izumi would then think to herself, "Because I am not getting the Dragon Balls for this." As Goten would say, that sounded more sarcastic than usual. as Izumi would then look over to Goten and say, "Oh, I'm very sorry, dear brother. Do forgive me for that." As they would then end up flying over to the training camp with Izumi basically carrying Shoto by his wrists. As they would then make it to the training camp, everybody makes it there like they did in canon. As basically nearly everything goes about as it did in canon, except for the onsen scene, where instead of Mineta being pushed over the edge by Koda, as soon as Mineta reaches the top before he could see anybody, Izumi basically fired her candy beam at Mineta as he basically turned into a stone, because I do know that the candy beam can turn people into other things as well. As she then fires it again, as it curve over the wall and hit the stone that is now Mineta, the stone that was Mineta, as Mineta would turn back to normal. As everybody except for Goten and Todoroki would be terrified by her power. As we now get to the League of Villains attack that goes about as it did in canon, with Bakugo getting kidnapped and being told by Shigaraki to leave his school and join his emo band. I'm joking. As we then get to the All for One versus All Might fight, where All Might does appear to be losing, as Izumi yells to Goten, "It's time!" As the moon has been destroyed like in canon, but in this timeline, I'm going to say Goten had regrown, or if he didn't have it already, had grown his Satan tail. As Izumi would yell, "It's time, Goten!" As Izumi would then throw the ball, as she would then do the same thing as Vegeta did, as she would have created an artificial moon, with Goten looking at it. As Goten would then turn into his Ozaru state, with Goten then crashing down and basically pummeling All for One to the point where he can no longer move. As Izumi would say, "Okay, that's enough," as she would then fire a beam at the artificial moon, destroying it, as Goten would then revert back to his normal state. As All Might would run over to Goten, as Izumi would land next to him, All Might would say, "What the hell was that?" As Izumi would say that she'll explain it later, but for now, they need to get Goten out of here before people start asking questions. As Izumi would then teleport out of there using the instant transmission technique and teleport back to her house, where Chi-Chi then hit Izumi and Goten over the heads, as she would have yelled at them that was incredibly dangerous and reckless of them to do, and to never do that again. As Izumi and Goten would be looking down at the floor, as they'd say, "Yes, mother." As we then get to the teacher's home. Sorry about that, as All Might would have gone to interview Izumi's family, but Izumi and Goten's family by himself, as Izumi would basically explain everything about the Saiyans, how Goten can do that since he's half Saiyan, and how Izumi is technically related to them, but she isn't their biological child. She used to be a villain, and that she was brought back to life, and now she's a good guy. As All Might's taking this all in, as he's thinking, This is very confusing, but I'm just going to go with it, as All Might would then thank them for their time and then leave, as Izumi would then look to Chi-Chi and Goku, as she would say, "He had absolutely no idea what we were saying, did he?" As Chi-Chi would say, "Nope, he looked like the look he gave was the same look Goku gave to me when I had to explain to him that wedding wasn't food." As Izumi would then snicker a little bit and begin laughing. As we then get to the dorm room, the dorm stuff, as Izumi's room would be filled with some like scientific stuff, so like a microscope, test tubes, a cloning tank, the usual scientific stuff you'd find. Well, she has to hide the cloning tank. Why? Because she's trying to clone I'll say she's trying to recreate Android 8. Yes, I know he was alive in the Dragon Ball Z canon, but I'm going to say he wasn't in this timeline. So Izumi's like trying to recreate Android 8 for Goku. As and I know some of you might be wondering, why can't she just use Dragon Balls? Well, that's simple. I'm going to say that the Dragon Balls don't really work for people who have been dead for a really long time. So people like Android 8 and Grandpa Gohan can't be brought back. Anyways, continuing forward. Izumi's room would have gone looked at by everybody, as they would have seen a lot of the test tube stuff, as they were wondering what was under the drapes, as Izumi would immediately moved them out of the room, as she didn't want them to see what was there. As the room reviews would go, they didn't canon, as we then get to the internship, second internships, and the overhaul arc. As now, Shoto and Izumi's relationship has gone better to the point where the both of them have started dating now. And Shoto has gone a lot more comfortable with using his fire side. As Izumi is currently interning under Night Eye, as they would have ran into overhaul like in canon, with Izumi opting to rescue Eri right then and there, instead of waiting for later, as she was already transformed, as just as Overhaul was about to take off his glove to threaten Eri, Izumi then fired off her candy beam, which turned Overhaul into a donut, as she would have grabbed it with her tail. He turned into a donut like here in the image, as Izumi would say, would hand it to Mirio, as she would say, "Take this to the police station, he'll turn back as soon as you get him there." As Mirio would say, "Right." As Mirio would then drop the donut off at the police station, as they would then turn back into Overhaul, as he would then put under arrest. As they then do the school festival thing, Izumi does end up defeating Gentle Criminal, as they do the whole Hero 2 thing, like in canon, as we then will fast forward a couple years into the future, with Izumi being the number one hero, and Goten being number 2. And I'm not sure if this is canon, but I'm pretty sure half Saiyans also age slower, like full-blooded Saiyans. So I'm going to say Goten still looks relatively young. and so does Izumi, because I'm pretty sure Android 21 doesn't age. As Izumi and Shoto did end up having a kid. And I'm sorry if I didn't touch on the relationship in this one. I was wanting to get this out of the way, so I didn't really think about the relationship. As Izumi would have a kid that sort of looked like a mix of her in her base form and Shoto, as they would have been very happy with their life. And that's the end of this what if. Now, I'm sorry if this was absolutely garbage. I haven't done this what if in ages, so do forgive me. Anyways, I do thank you for watching. Now, I did want to tell you about the one of the what ifs that I planned. Now, the one project I'll tell you about is is one that has been done by Ravenclaw What If, but I don't think he's continuing it, and it is his Dark Elf What If. So I was planning on taking my own doing my own version of that. So if you guys would like to see me do a What If female deku with a Dark Elf, do let me know in the comments, and I will see you all next time. Ta-ta!